Welcome back to Al Talks. It's been a sad week. Sadly last week, the microphone was acting up there for a second. Anyway, unfortunately, sadly last week, Sean Locke passed away from his battle with cancer. He was 58 years old. Now, for some of you who don't know, maybe wondering who Sean Locke is, Sean Locke was an English comedian that was on a show over in the UK for years. Sean Locke was on Mock of the Week, and then he was on 8 out of 10 Cats, and then later became 8 out of 10 Cats Just Countdown. It was a hugely popular show. I'll read some of the people that were guests on it. Sean Locke, Spikey, Dave Spikey, Jason Manford, John Richardson, Rob Beckett, Aisling Bea, and Katherine Ryan. Katherine Ryan, who has a Netflix special. Can't remember the name of it. Actually, Google now. Katherine Ryan. Netflix show. It is called show. She has a show on Netflix called The Duchess. I think that seems to have been cancelled. I'm trying to find her stand-up special. The name of it, it's called Glitter Room, and if you ever get a chance, definitely watch it. It's brilliant. Microphone is really not happy today. Anyway, so as a teenager, growing up, this is way before I even thought about doing stand-up, because nowadays you only hear me talk about American comedians, but I started off liking British comics like Jimmy Carr, Sean Locke, Bill Bailey. There was a couple of others as well, and I mean, even recently enough, I was at a friend's house. We were watching 8 out of 10 Cats does a countdown, and we're doing the maths thing. And my friend Gary, who's been on the podcast before, he figured out the maths problem. They give you numbers, and it has to be, you have to add and multiply, and you have to get one of the answers up on the board. And Gary had figured out, and he was like, I said, well, how'd you figure it out? We're watching that we pause and then try and do the maths, and he was like, yeah, you get the tree. And I go, well, what fucking tree, Gary? What is the fucking tree? Because he got a tree, because I didn't know that you could, from the sum of things, you could use a number to use it in a different part of the equation to get the number on the screen. So that's always like, where's the fucking tree? That was a great moment that night. But so it was, throughout the years, I've really enjoyed his stand-up. One of my favorite moments is Jimmy Carr asked Sean Locke, can you name a great British pastime? And without hesitation, Sean Locke was like, badger baiting. And Jimmy Carr was like, I'm sorry, what? He goes, badger baiting. You get a badger and you just kick him, and you kick him. And he's like, I'm pretty sure Sean were not allowed to do that to badgers. And he goes, yeah, but another brilliant clip was they were doing 8 out of 10 Cats countdown. I'll actually put a link to that clip in the description. And Jimmy Carr asked Sean Locke, he's like, Sean, if you could bring something back from the dead, what would it be? And he goes, well, do Jurassic Park, but make it safe, take all their teeth and claws out. But even before Sean Locke started speaking, everyone in the panel started laughing because they knew that's the presence that Sean Locke had as a comedian. That it was, his style of comedy has been explained as deadpan, and he says ridiculous, crazy shit. But that's what was funny about him. And then he went on this bit. It was like, okay, here's what that was my first thought about Jurassic Park, make it safe, take their teeth out, and claws. And then he said, the other thing I thought about, I would bring back the leading members of the Nazi Party. And then Jimmy Carr cut him off, and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, Sean Locke, he's had a wonderful career, but it's over now. And he was on the team with another and I don't know if she's the comic or not, but he was on the team with Roisin. And Jimmy kept going, so Roisin, and Sean was like, no, wait. He's like, let me hear this through. And he's like, so what would you do? He's like, I take all the Nazi leaders and put them on an island, and they have to fend for themselves. And everyone's just laughing hysterically at this. It's a brilliant bit. But those are the most two memorable moments for me from Sean Locke's career. He's had multiple, but the badger baiting, and definitely and he called us like, what would you call this show? He's like, I'd call it Nazi Island, but yeah, brilliant stuff. Rest in peace to genuine comic legend. He battled cancer in secret. That was kind of like Hicks did with his cancer, I think I mentioned before in an episode that Hicks's last show, he was saying, actually I'm not doing stand-up anymore because I've got a TV show. It wasn't his last show, but it was kind of one of his few last shows. He was saying, I won't be doing stand-up anymore because I got a TV show. And he's like, I finally made it, things are working out for me. But then a couple of months after that show, he passed away. But I think it was a nice kind of way to give himself kind of a send-off. And so yeah, R.I.P. Sean Locke, may you rest in peace. Another thing I want to talk about before I wrap it up is I was listening to it was Joey Diaz. That's next week's podcast. I was listening to George Lopez's podcast, and he had the actors who played Merry and Pippin on. I forget their names. I think one of them is called Boyd something. Give me a second. I could just Google it now. Merry and Pippin actors. Yeah. So Merry was played by Dominic Monaghan, and Billy Boyd played Pippin. So he had the two of them on the podcast, and it's a brilliant podcast. I think I'll put a link to it in the description as well. But it's brilliant because they were talking about how they got cast in Lord of the Rings and how they became friends. They do a podcast themselves now. Monaghan and Billy Boyd, they do a podcast called Friendship Onion. I haven't listened to it yet myself, but it sounds like a really good one. Because obviously they have so many stories to tell from Lord of the Rings, and they have people on from. They had, I think, episode 3 was Elijah Wood. Also, it was, it's brilliant stuff. It was really interesting to hear them talk about. They were talking about tenants because George Lopez is a avid golfer, and he went over to St Andrews over in Scotland, and this he said before St Andrews got all fancy and he should drink Tennent. And I found it funny because when I was in college, we would get pictures of Tennent. I think I was like, I don't know, €6 or €7 or something. It was fairly cheap. Like, we were just drinking it because it's cheap pissy bear, like. But it's so funny that George Lopez like loves Tennant. When he mentioned that, I was like, that's brilliant. And anyway, there's no update so far on stand-up returns at the moment, so it is what it is, So leave this podcast kind of teaser. Next week I'm going to talk about Joey Diaz. Shocker, I know. But I'm going to leave it for this week. Thanks all for watching, and once again, rest in peace, Sean Locke. Though that show will forever be in everybody's hearts, and you will always be a comic legend. Okay, thank you for watching. Goodbye.